Welcome to the Real Deal Smite God reveal, featuring Sobek, the Egyptian god of the Nile.
Drop your guard and I'll snatch you from the banks like a naive gazelle.
I have such fond memories of Sobek. He was my first guardian I wanted to main back when I started Smite, which is why my win rate with him is so abysmal. I remember those Joust games from Season 1 where my teammates would call me the worst Sobek in North America because I would either miss my pulls or pull them in the wrong direction. In some ways, things are still the same now as they were back then. Well, enough reminiscing. Sobek is a tank/bruiser/support whose playstyle is similar to Renekton from League, which kinda makes sense since Renekton is based on Sobek from Egyptian lore, just like this Sobek. So let's find out what makes him so good. Sobek's passive is Blessing of the Nile. Sobek's basic attacks and abilities that hit an enemy grants him 7 protections for 3 seconds and can stack 3 times. This is a pretty straightforward passive, but if you want the too long didn't read version, hit shit, get hard, fuck bitches. Sobek's playstyle is meant to go into a fight, deal as much damage as you can, and soak up as much damage as possible. The only real downside is that you need to stack the passive to get the full effect, but it's not that hard to accomplish. Sobek's one is Charge Prey. Sobek charges forward, and if Sobek hits an enemy, he does 230 plus 50% of Sobek's magical damage and throws the enemy behind himself. Sobek is immune to knockups whilst dashing. This is Sobek's main bread and butter ability. If you can't land this, you shouldn't be playing Sobek. This one ability is where most of Sobek's CC is. When you land Sobek's pull, it acts as both a stun, then a knockup. So something to keep in mind is that knockups can't be cleansed out of, but stuns can. This means that if you land your pull on an enemy, they have that split second that beads out of the knockup effect. Worse still, Sobek continues the rest of his throwing animation, which acts as a self-stun. While not the biggest problem, it's better to make sure your opponent used their cleansing items before you grab them. The other thing to keep in mind is that this ability is Sobek's dash. Holy crap, this is the 5th god in a row I've talked about whose dash needs to be used aggressively to be effective. This can't be a coincidence. I've got my eye on you, random online picker. So if you do miss it, you'll be in a shitty position, but that's not too big of a problem because of Sobek's next ability. Sobek's 2 is Tail Whip. Sobek whips around in a circle, knocking enemies back and dealing 260 plus 40% of Sobek's magical damage. As I said, this ability is good to help Sobek out when you fuck up his pull, but it's also good to help continue his CC chain in his kit due to the knockup. And that's basically all there is to this ability. Next, Sobek's 3 is Sickening Strike. Sobek does an axe attack that deals 220 plus 30% of Sobek's magical damage to all enemies in front of him and lowers their healing by 50% for 4 seconds. And Sobek heals for 60 plus 10% of Sobek's magical damage per enemy hit up to 3 times. While this ability doesn't provide any CC like the rest of his kit, it is the ability you want to level up first due to the damage and sustain it provides. Plus the anti-healing reduction debuff is a nice bonus. Sobek's ult is Lurking in the Waters. Sobek submerges himself where he gains 30% protections, regenerates 10% mana per second, is CC immune, and slows all enemies by 40%. When Sobek emerges, he deals 950 plus 80% of Sobek's magical damage to all enemies in the radius. Cancelling the ability early decreases the damage. Wow, okay Hi-Rez, let's just give Sobek a mobile Ymir ult that's better in every way. The only thing the Ymir ult outclasses is the damage output, but who gives a fuck about that when utility is so much more valuable. Yeah, so it's great for peeling, setting up for your team, and lane sustain. One of the details I forgot to mention about Sobek is that he does run low on mana quite often. He's not as bad as Rama, but it's still pretty bad. Although who cares, right? Just keep enough mana to ult and you're fine. The only detail I don't know about concerning the ult is how weak the ult becomes if you don't charge it. Hey, it wouldn't be a god reveal if Hi-Rez didn't state all the information about the god, am I right? And before you ask, no, the wiki doesn't know either. Hashtag you know the drill by now. Regardless, the game does force you to stay under for at least 1 second before you're allowed to activate the ult again, so just something to keep in mind. With all that said and done, Sobek is a really good support character. He provides great setup potential for the team, plus he's one of the few guardians who doesn't need help from the team to do well due to his high base damage. Just be sure to land those pulls or else you'll be hearing it from your teammates. Oh god, will you be hearing it from your teammates.
Thanks.